Spice, which has become a catch-all term for all synthetic cannabinoids, has become a huge issue in the UK. Most people know this because if they walk around any city centre, you see the homeless community struggling with it. But what most people don't know is that the UK government actually caused the spice problem, and then they tried to hush it up. In recent times, spice has become a catch-all term for all synthetic cannabinoids. It's become a huge issue within the UK. As the years have gone on, it's morphed into some really nasty, potent and cheap substances. Many people are really struggling with this, and it always seems to be the most vulnerable populations here. The prisoners who find it easy to conceal and hide when it's impregnated into little bits of paper that they can vape. School kids who often can't afford expensive weed vapes, so they get sold spice vapes thinking they're getting THC. And the homeless community who often just want to be completely splintered from reality at the cheapest possible price. Most people know this because when you walk around many city centres in the UK, you can see it. But what most people don't know is that the British government created this problem.
When they started drug testing in prisons, we don't know why they did it. We know what happened though, and I'll tell you this story now because a lot of people don't know, and this has become this has been hushed up. The original question of drug, what drugs do prisoners take is kind of an interesting question. It was done by a group at King's College. They studied a couple of prisons, and they showed that prisoners, interestingly, they do take drugs, various drugs. They take heroin, and they take some prescription drugs, and they also smoke quite a lot of cannabis. So you got a report, and people thought, well, so what? And then, for reasons which we don't fully understand, probably partly political, probably partly commercial, because the companies that do drug testing could see, I think, a massive commercial opportunity. I mean, if you test every prisoner every day and you charge for each test, there's actually quite a lot of money in that. So there was a massive lobby for drug testing in prisons, and it kind of fitted in with the conservative, and the Labour hatred of drugs and prisoners. So against the wishes of the prison governors, we had drug science. We had the chair of the Prison Governors Association talk to us about this in about 2015. He said we were horrified because we were told we had to test our prisoners without consultation.
They're focusing on what's effective. These tests don't work. Some drugs can't be tested for, others only stay in your system for a day. So this is a complete distraction from the real issue of providing busy prison routines, well-staffed, safe prisons in which people have the motivation to stop using drugs.
So what happened was, of course, that loads of them got picked up for having cannabis. They could have smoked it days or weeks before. Well, what happened then, and this was the cruel thing, that their sentences, they got the time off for good conduct was removed, so they might have a third added to their sentence. Now, prisoners are not stupid, and the first thing they did was stop smoking cannabis. But as you can imagine, as most people, some of you would, prison is such an utterly demoralizing and pointless and boring place that the only way to survive is to take drugs. So what did they do? They switched to heroin, because heroin's out of the system within 24 hours. So there was a surge of heroin deaths in prison. And
He says he was in prison. Drug of choice was weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. You just chill out a bit, maybe have a bit of munch. Overnight, prison service brought drug testing in. It is illegal in prison, unauthorised item, drugs, cannabis. So when they brought it in, people started getting added days, punishments, and they're like, cannabis in your system up to 30 days. Some of the stuff now, probably, 3 months, who knows. So what happened? This isn't an urban myth. What happened was that everyone who liked a bit of weed or whatever, perhaps didn't want to lose remission, have added days, be punished, started using heroin. Heroin in your days, 24 hours, maybe 3 days in your system. That's not bullshit, it's a fact. So all the people smoking weed went over to heroin overnight, and that probably continued and escalated.
And then what happened was that people didn't want to die, so people started looking for alternatives to cannabis. And the synthetic cannabinoids came along, and of course, they weren't picked up by the detection kits. They were very powerful. They could be smuggled in small amounts. They could be smuggled in, dissolved in, on paper that had been soaked in them and smoked. So they created this enormous market for spice.
When drugs and prisons are mentioned, there's one that dominates the headlines: spice.
The merchandise rude boy.
So who is the company that's spending millions lobbying the government and making millions testing UK prisoners? According to the Prison Reform Trust, all prisoners, whether on remand or convicted, can be tested for alcohol and other drugs. This is called mandatory drug testing. There are 3 main procedures for selecting people for testing: computer-generated random tests, which are carried out each month. Then there's targeted testing when they believe they have reasonable suspicion that someone is using drugs, and risk assessment testing when people are considered for temporary release or transfer into open prison. According to a company called Abbott Toxicology, they hold the HM prison contracts for mandatory drug testing and compact-based drug testing in England and Wales. In 2017, the company acquired another company called 𝙎𝙤𝙣𝙩𝙝𝙗, now operating both firms under the Abbott Toxicology banner. In 2021, the US Department of Justice reached a $38.75 million settlement with 𝙎𝙤𝙣𝙩𝙝 to resolve allegations that the company knowingly sold defective diagnostic testing devices to hospitals. The company denied any wrongdoing, but were also willing to pay $38 million to make the allegations go away. Then there's Abbott Laboratories, the parent company of Abbott Toxicology. They manage the company's government lobbying through their government affairs program. They spend millions and millions every year to influence governments, healthcare, telehealth, digital tech, and pain management legislation. So as you can see, there's a hell of a lot of money sloshing around this world.
Between sort of 20 and 30 prisoners a year die of spice, because spice is it's way more toxic than cannabis. No one's ever died of cannabis in prison. It also produces not just deaths, but states of enormous severe intoxication, often needing a lot of restraint. So most prisons now have little platoons of paramedics, big male paramedics, to deal with the spice problem. And it was all because this hatred that people have, or the politicians and others have, of wanting to keep on punishing, as if being put in prison isn't punishment enough. So, basically, most drug testing is about punishing people for using drugs rather than helping them be safer when they have used them.
The reason we ended up with spice in prisons here was because the government wanted to gain more votes by looking tough on drugs, and they didn't listen to the experts who warned about the potential indirect consequences, and also because Big Pharma wanted to make more and more money and were more than happy to put profits over people. When it comes to drug policies, the politicians' aims are always the same: not to reduce the harms of drugs, not to help people who take drugs, but to make money, gain votes, gain power, and maintain the war on drugs, regardless of how much damage it does. And even more unintended consequences then came up once spice made it into schools.
I was literally just scrolling on Snapchat, and I've come across this guy's story, and it was bought with this bottle of liquid, and apparently one of my mates has said it can get you bare high. So I bought it for a tenner, brought it back, put it in my vape, and I got stoned bad. I was passing out. I couldn't properly concentrate. I did think it was THC. Obviously, it wasn't, and that's the scary thing. I didn't know for a few years that it was spice.
So spice is a purely synthetic drug. It's man-made, originally designed to kind of mimic cannabis, but we realised very quickly it was very risky. It gets made en masse and then shipped into the UK, or even made in the UK, and it's so cheap. It's just so cheap, and it's remarkably strong. And it's considered almost to be as addictive as crack. That's how addictive this drug is. So THC vapes, which in the story, that's what young people are looking for. They want to try cannabis for that first time. A THC vape is maybe £60, £70. Young people don't have that kind of money, but a spice vape to fill up your vape, £2.
I started using it in the toilets and then it made me feel very funny. So I went to the school nurse and she then knew I was high when I didn't know what it was myself.
So these are bottles of vape liquid that have been seized from secondary schools from England, and they all contain spice.
For the last year, police have been sending Professor Chris Pudney hundreds of vapes.
That is spice, so probably a pretty strong variant.
The University of Bath tested nearly 2,000 vapes, seized from 114 schools across England. Of those, 13% were found to contain spice.
So there you go, that's the topsy-turvy world of the war on drugs. If you find these videos useful or interesting, follow me, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you on the next one.